There's certain things that are negotiable and there's certain things that are not, right? I mean, you can negotiate terms of a contract, but you're not going to negotiate your self-worth. You're not going to negotiate your self-respect.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But if you're ready to level up your life and get results that truly matter in your health, business, mindset, and relationships, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to Scheer Madness, where we have unscripted, real conversations with the world's top athletes, entrepreneurs, and coaches. Discover real-world and tactical advice from the best in the business. Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Scheer Madness. Today is going to be an interesting show because I have Rebecca Zung joining us here today, and she is one of the top attorneys here in the United States, but she's also an expert in negotiation, and she's known online as the Narcissist Slayer, where she gives incredible tips on how to deal with toxic people in your life, but also how to get the life you want and be more persuasive. So I'm honored here to introduce Rebecca Zung. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so honored, and I absolutely love hanging out with you. We always have so much fun.
Yeah, we've had an awesome time getting to know each other through some other mutual friends. And I remember our friend Amberly was like, you guys just need to meet Rebecca. She's a narcissist slayer. And I was like, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
But it's been so interesting because this isn't a subject that I feel like, I have a whole lot of education in. But I've learned so much from following you on social media and being able to pick out certain things where I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense as to why I felt that way in that relationship with that person. So I know everybody is going to get so much out of today's episode here. But before we dive into all things narcissism and even on the art of persuasion, how did you get into this line of work? Because I know there's an interesting backstory there.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, it's not the kind of thing that, you go, oh, I want to grow up and, do narcissism negotiation. It's not like I was pretending that Ken was a narcissist when I was playing Barbies. No, well, first of all, I was an attorney by trade. I mean, I am an attorney, and I did have narcissists in my practice. I did high net worth divorce for a long time. I don't practice anymore regularly, or at all. But I definitely had a lot of narcissists in my practice when I did high net worth divorce. But I really didn't even know that those people were narcissists at that time. But a few years ago, I merged my practice with a couple of other guys, and mostly because I thought, I really am an entrepreneur at heart, and my daughter, who's now 20, was just starting high school, and I wanted to spend more time with her. So I started to do some entrepreneurial things, a lot of different things that were entrepreneurial. And in one of those endeavors, one of them, I partnered up with somebody who ended up to be what turned out to be a covert narcissist. And I didn't even realize that kind of person existed. I didn't know anything about covert narcissism. The person turned out to, she was a female. I didn't know females could be narcissists at all.
Yeah.
But I did know that it was a horrible, heinous experience. It ended up triggering a lot of things for me. I was bullied as a kid, and there were a lot of things that ended up to be triggering for me that brought out stuff like that in me that I thought was long gone, buried, dust in the wind, and here I had one of the top family law practices in the country. I mean, I had a very great life, lots of, really wonderful things in my life at that point. So it wasn't like, oh, I had this horrible life or anything like that. It was all good. But when I was into this relationship, which was a business relationship, all of a sudden I felt confused. I felt helpless. I felt small. I felt, in the middle of the night, I'm waking up, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it while I'm brushing my teeth. I feel paranoid. All of the things that you experience when you're in a relationship with a narcissist. And I went on vacation with my family, and I just thought, I'm getting out of this relationship. I realized, oh my God, every minute I'm thinking about this person, I'm allowing myself to be a victim. I'm not in creation mode. And I just made a decision at that moment. I'm getting out of this relationship. I just made a decision. I'm getting out. And at that moment, I just decided I'm finishing this negotiation book that I had started, and I came down from that mountain. I was in Hawaii at that time. We're at the top of this beautiful mountain. I came down from that mountain, and I said, I'm finishing this negotiation book. I'm getting out of this relationship, which I did. That negotiation book, Robert Shapiro ended up writing the foreword for. He, it goes to number 1 on Amazon. That becomes Negotiate Like You M.A.T.E.R. And only after all of that, and that was only in December of 19, when somebody said, that person was a covert narcissist. And that was when I was like, what is that?
So someone else kind of brought it to your attention
Someone
first.
else brought it to my attention. And so I started reading about it, and that's when I started applying what I had already learned about negotiation to what I was learning about narcissism. And that's when I started to really see movement in my cases. I was still practicing law at the time. And that's when I started talking about it on YouTube. And, so it was then that I created a course around it called Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist. And it was then right after that, the COVID hit. I was dividing my time between California and Florida. So I couldn't fly back to Florida anymore at that point. So I really just said, okay, let me do a video on how to negotiate with a narcissist. It blows up.
It's blown up so much.
Yeah. And that's really, so it's really just over 2 years now that I have now almost 30 million views on YouTube in just 2 years. It's crazy what's happened in my life, but that's how it kind of came to be.
It's such a cool story, because I know typically when you think of narcissism, like my brain tends to think of like romantic relationships. My brain goes back to like this romantic relationship and why I felt so small and why I felt like I, could never really speak for myself, and how everything was always turned around and was my fault in so many different areas, at least after reading so many of the stuff that like you put out there. But it's so interesting that, your first kind of encounter with narcissism was actually in a business setting, and it was with a female, because I think that's almost where we're probably even more vulnerable, because we don't expect it as much, I think, in like a business setting, I can imagine, and yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, but I'm an attorney. I had negotiated for years and years and years. I was a pretty powerful attorney.
Yeah.
And so, and I had to get over that blame and shame, because I was like, I don't want to have to admit to people that I had this happen to me. I felt like I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to be this badass attorney. I was actually really ashamed that this happened to me. But then I started to think, no, they don't attach themselves to you because you have so little value. They attach themselves to you because you have so much value.
Wow.
They don't want the blue light clearance rack special. They are opportunists.
Yeah.
They want the shiny object that they can attach themselves to that make them look good.
That's such a powerful reframe, because I know for so many people who've been in toxic relationships with people, whether it was a narcissist or just any kind of a toxic relationship, we put so much blame on ourselves. But I love that you say, narcissists in particular, like they focus in on people who have massive value, because that's, I would imagine, intimidating to them. So their thought process is, how can I make this person small in order to make myself feel better? Is that correct?
Well, I think it's twofold. It's not only that, but it's also attaching themselves to somebody who's going to make them look better. Mm-hmm. Because if I attach myself to this person, then I look better because people see me with this person. Mm-hmm. And then if I can also make this person smaller, gain control over this person, use passive aggressive skills, or degrade this person in some way, then now I am more powerful because I've been able to make this person smaller, who I already thought more highly of. So if I can gain control over this person, look at me.
Yeah.
Look what I've been able to do.
Yeah. And I really want to break down what are some of the traits to look for with a narcissist, because I know there's different ranges, I would imagine, of it. I know when we were having dinner one night, I asked you, I was like, is there a healthy amount of narcissism? Because I'm like, I sometimes feel like I have a lot of, like, I take pride, and, one of my needs is really kind of that an achievement kind of thing. So I know there's like some degrees of it, but first question I have is there a healthy amount of narcissism that we can have?
Absolutely.
And then where does it become toxic and damaging?
There is definitely a healthy amount of narcissism. So it is good to have a good perspective about yourself. And it's actually, they actually say there's a healthy amount of narcissism in the sense it's good to see yourself as maybe a little bit better than you are, in a sense, mm-hmm. But where it becomes unhealthy is where you actually have no sense of care, compassion, or empathy for other people. You literally cannot see other people's needs. And it is a spectrum, so you have to look at it as all the way to the other end of a spectrum where you cannot see anything about the other person. So the way I like to describe narcissism is you have to picture a person who has like a black hole inside of them, and they're completely and totally, they feel totally and completely empty inside. And it's like they're starving, gasping for breath, desperate for air. They're like in survival mode all the time. And it's scarcity to the utmost extreme. And so if you're in survival mode, almost like you're on the side of a mountain and you're like starving, desperate, then that's why you can't see anything about the other person. Because if you have a toothache or something, right? You can't see anything about the other person at that time, because all you can think about is that toothache, that pain, right? And so that's what it is. And so when another person comes along, this other person who's probably very empathic, very caring, very, wants to fill that hole for this other person, well, then the narcissist wants you to fill it too. So you want to fill it. They want you to fill it. And so, you're there trying to fill this hole that can't be filled. So you're left feeling totally and utterly depleted. Yeah. Yet they're still starving because it can't be filled. And so that's what's happening. And so they're in scarcity mode all the time. And yet it cannot be healed. They cannot be fixed. So that's what narcissism really is. And it is a personality disorder. Okay. It is a disorder.
So do you think once a narcissist, always a narcissist?
It is.
No, you can't heal from that?
It's very extreme. Rare.
Rare.
It's very
Not
rare.
Impossible, but rare.
It's rare.
Okay.
It's rare. I mean, of all of the mental health professionals that I've spoken to, some of them have said it's has happened, but it's pretty rare. They have to have like a complete and utter breakdown. Basically, something happens in their life where
they have that extreme catalyst.
Catalyst. And it's pretty rare. I mean, the problem is with that particular disorder, they don't go and ask for help.
Yeah.
And so, of all the mental health issues out there, that's the least likely person who's going to be self-aware, go ask for help, accept help when it's offered, So a lot of the mental health professionals that I've actually interviewed have said they won't even take narcissists as clients.
Wow. And that's like definitely on the extreme side. And I know for the way my brain works is I'm like very root cause focused. I love the psychology piece of it. So I can't always help to ask the question of like, what are the root causes for like someone developing narcissism and like stepping into that place, of such scarcity? Because that's really what it sounds like. It's just an utter place of scarcity and emptiness that this person has, where they're blaming and it's everybody else's fault, but also everyone else's responsibility, right, to fix a lot of that within themselves. So I believe, at least with some mental health issues, a lot of that stems from trauma, that has happened in their life. I have my father who is actually mentally ill. He's homeless. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about mental health, but I've watched him, throughout the years and his mental health really deteriorate more and more and more. One, because he's never really sought the help to dive in to do the work of where a lot of his trauma came from. Had a very verbally abusive father, relationship stuff. And over these years, he's kind of like created this false reality because the pain of actually being in actual reality was too much. And I don't think it's a conscious, belief. It's like this subconscious thing that our brain does to protect really at the core. And now he has this like alternate reality and he's homeless and can barely support himself. So I have such compassion for people who have mental health issues, but I think so much of it comes from that trauma piece. And
it is absolutely trauma. Yeah. They have the most amount of shame. I mean, if you, Brene Brown talked about how of all the shame, all of us have a certain amount of shame. Narcissists have the most amount of shame, absolutely the most amount of shame. However, and yes, we can have compassion for them. However, that doesn't mean you have to live in that, and you don't have to continue to be in that space. And when it comes to negotiating with them, which is what I talk about, you have to understand that we're talking about 15% of the population, and so you cannot negotiate with them like you would any other regular, reasonable people. And to apply the regular rules of communication, negotiation, dealing with, managing to everybody as a blanket rule, it's just completely naive. Yeah. It's a naive approach.
So how can we stay in being in a victor mindset instead of that victim kind of mindset? And I want to ask this question in kind of two parts. One, when dealing with narcissists, but two, just from like a totality standpoint, because I think all of my listeners would really benefit. And I know that's something you talk about quite a bit, but just in life, like how can we stay in this place of like, I'm in control of my life and not fall into, the patterns of being a victim, because I think dealing with a narcissist or not aside, like that's a place that just a lot of us can really fall into in life.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, you have to understand that they are who they are. There will always be narcissists in this world. They will always be toxic. Instead of looking over at their side of the fence, focusing on you and your side of the fence is so, so important. And that's the why in my SLAY mentality and my SLAY methodology. So SLAY stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. But you is like almost the most important piece of it. 99% of winning happens before you even walk into a room or before you do anything, because, they will always be toxic. They will always be who they are. But, you will always be the most powerful version of yourself. And the truth of the matter is, they are actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. Deep down inside of them, they are actually very, very, very fearful. The root cause of them is fear. They're very, very fear-based individuals. Very, very fear-based individuals.
Yeah.
There is almost there are like kind of two parts of their personalities. There's their true self and their false self, and their true self is a very scared individual, very scared individual.
Yeah. So it sounds a lot like focusing on ourself and how we can really show up and stay grounded in ourself. I know that's something that I speak to a lot just with holistic health and functional medicine, but like knowing who you are versus like walking in and being in that fear place of like, what are they going to do? Almost like boundaries in a lot of ways, like having those boundaries, just like we set boundaries with ourselves, but setting boundaries with other people. And I know boundaries aren't about what other people do. It's about, what we allow in, correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's certain things that are negotiable and there's certain things that are not, right? I mean, you can negotiate terms of a contract, but you're not going to negotiate your self-worth. You're not going to negotiate your self-respect.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Not going to negotiate, you guys, your self-worth, and you're not going to negotiate your self-respect in any circumstance. And it's hard, I think, sometimes to grasp, but I think we do negotiate that quite a bit. And I actually just had a girl on my podcast, and we were talking a lot about self-esteem, but at the core, self-esteem is what we think of ourselves and not what other people think of us at the core. So we have to think and, have that sense of value and trust in ourselves, which is, I know, something that a lot of people struggle with. And that's how we can really stay in that place, right? Of like, I'm the victor versus easily falling into that place of being the victim.
Yeah, but sometimes the first negotiation that we do with ourselves is for our own, with our own selves, for our own self-worth in the morning, right? So I always say that I don't allow my thoughts to be unsupervised, so I try to be very careful about listening to good podcasts or listening to good audiobooks or whatever, just staying in that positive mindset at all times, because, narcissists will want to take over. They will want to tell you that you're worthless, or that, everything is your fault, or that everything that you do is wrong, or everything that went wrong in their lives is your fault, or all of that. And if you listen to that constant tape all the time, then and especially if you already had your own trauma too. And a lot of times they attract people who are codependent, or who are, even though you are an empath, sometimes, it's an empath narcissist attraction, partially because you want to fix them because you think you can. And a lot of times it's because you also had your own trauma. And so there's this codependent need, and it's not necessarily a healthy relationship. There's a symbiotic sort of relationship going on there too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like our own traumas and our own, triggers are oftentimes the areas that leave us very vulnerable and susceptible to a narcissist.
Absolutely. And then they'll say things like, I'm the only one who loves you. I'm the only one who'll take care of you. Your family doesn't even love you. I do. And they'll feed into that.
Yeah.
I'm the only one who can show you love. Look at that. Look at what they're doing, and then you start believing these lies.
Yeah. So on the topic of narcissism, I want to switch gears to negotiation, because you're a badass negotiator, and I definitely have to pick your brain on that. But what are 3 things that people should look for if identifying someone who could be a narcissist in their life?
Well, the first thing is, they come on really super fast, super strong, almost overpowering how quickly the relationship starts. I mean, it's
love bombing in a way.
The love bombing.
Yeah.
The love bombing. It's like too much, too soon, too fast. You almost don't even get a chance to think. And that's what they want. They don't want you to have a chance to think. And that's what happened with me, even in the business relationship. I mean, I had started something that, an endeavor that was something that I had already had an idea around. But this person came along and they were like, oh, I could help you with that. I have all these great contacts. You should put my name on it. And, but so it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. I mean, but even in a romantic sense, it's, we're perfect for each other. The stars have aligned. Where have you been all my life? And they make you feel like you're the most amazing, incredible human that they've ever met. And you just don't even have a chance to breathe. And they want to get to the next level as soon as possible, committed, locked in. And if you even hesitate at all, they give you all the reasons why you shouldn't be hesitating. Because why wait? We've been waiting all of our lives for this. This is amazing. Get there. And then as soon as you get there, then red flags, things aren't lining up. Things are, you're seeing gaps in their stories, holes in their stories, problems. Passive aggressive things are happening. They're not doing what they said they're going to do. Things aren't following through. There's problems. And then it's somebody else's fault, or there's,
or it's your fault.
And then it becomes your fault right away. And then they're ghosting you. What happens is at the beginning of the relationship, they couldn't get enough. It was 1,000 text messages a day. It was this, that, and the other. They were showing up all the time, but then as soon as they're locked in, now you're texting, you're emailing, you're this, you're that, nothing, crickets. And you're going, where are you? What's happening? And now it's, I can't email you every minute of the day. Now you're all of a sudden you're needy. What's wrong with you? Now all of a sudden the tables turn. It's hot and cold, and and they treat you like there's something wrong with you. And now it's like you're this hanger-on, and there's problems in the relationship and all kinds of issues. But then if they sense you're pulling away, then it's back to the love bomb and a future fake, and you'll see things will be better, and and so it's this toxic stew on and on and on, and until you finally try to get out of this thing, and it's a nightmare because you become public enemy number one. Of course, they want to just take you down, and so that's basically it in a nutshell. But
it's like the process of it all, like overly excitement, overly love, way too fast. And then kind of this where things aren't lining up, not following through on the things they say, gaps in their stories.
Right.
Probably some lies thrown in there too that you're starting to pick up on. That doesn't make sense. That's not true. And then almost like this withdrawal, but then really pointing the finger back at you.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So
yeah. And normally, they don't have a whole lot of friends, or there's some sob story in their past. They had a crazy ex, or they had a sob story about their family, or, there's usually that kind of thing as well. Yeah.
Some backstory or excuse. It kind of sounds like too as to why things are happening the way they are. So
exactly.
You put some awesome information I know up there about narcissism, but one thing I know that you're also incredible at speaking to is really negotiating and creating the life that you want for yourself. And I know when we were actually at dinner that night, you told this story that I thought was so freaking powerful about, and I'm probably going to butcher it, so I'm going to let you share it, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where it was you were about to walk into some kind of a meeting, but your background didn't line up, and someone gave you some kind of a...
It was when I was maybe leaving the practice of when I was going back to my practice of law, maybe.
It was your belief in walking into this and having kind of a different background in what you were stepping into, and the belief, and the persuasion piece that you had.
So
I was going to butcher it.
Yeah, I think it was when I was, I had been practicing law for about 8 years, and then I was a wealth advisor for Morgan Stanley for a few years, and then I was going back to the practice of law. And I was so worried that everybody in Naples, Florida was going to think I was such a flake, because I thought, first she was a lawyer, and then she was a wealth advisor, and back to being a lawyer. And I thought, so I said to my business coach at the time, I thought, people are going to think I'm such a flake, and she said, well, people will think that you're a flake if you say that you're a flake, or you can she said, people will think that what you tell them to think. She said, people will think that you're a flake if you tell them to think that you're a flake, or you can tell them to think that you are the only family law attorney in town that has a financial background. So therefore, you are actually more qualified than any other family law attorney in town. Which story would you like to tell? And I was like, oh, maybe I'll tell that version.
That's just, okay, I'm pausing there because that's just so powerful. And when you told that story, I think that's always the decision that we get to make. We get to, who do we believe that we are? And what do we want to step into? We always have this other side popping up like, oh, I'm a fraud, I'm a flake, I'm not good enough. And we can carry that. We can walk into meetings with that. We can walk into podcasts with that. I know I've definitely have those thoughts come up. But one thing I always speak to is just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true. Or you can say, actually, that's why I'm this much more qualified. That's why I'm going to be good at my job. That's why I'm a badass with everything that I do here. And I think that's just such this powerful shift and one of those big pivotal moments in our life where we're like, whatever I believe is actually what's going to be the truth. And you walked into that meeting and you carried that second belief.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, maybe I'll do it that way instead. And so within 2 years, I had one of the top family law practices in Florida, representing billionaires, celebrities, top people, and clearly people who were not going to have hired a flake, right? But had I gone in and apologized, oh, I'm so sorry, that I switched around so much, then that's what people would have seen. They would have seen like this person who was apologizing for my background. But I went in with power and I said, this is who I am. I'm better than everybody else because I've got this background. People will think what you tell them to think, right? So all these people hired me because I had this way better background. So people will think what you tell them to think.
People will think what you tell them to think. And I think that's just such a powerful note for all of us to take in, because we tend to just fall back into that other thought pattern so easily. And I think that's normal. It is normal for us to question ourselves and not always to feel 100% confident all the time. At least I know I'm not always 100% confident. Either, yeah. But I think it's a choice. You have these both sides. We always have that inner battle in between us. And we're like, which one am I going to choose to act on? Which one am I going to choose to believe to be true? I talk to my clients all about this all the time. They come to work with me to heal their gut and autoimmune condition or anything like that. And I tell them from the get-go, your belief actually matters the most. You can tell yourself over and over again, I'm not going to heal, I'm not going to get better. And that's probably going to be the truth. Or you can tell yourself, you know what? I'm going to heal. I'm getting better. I am healed. And that belief carries so much further. And I know so many people's stories who, started on a autoimmune protocol. And I know I'm going on the functional side, but they just made that decision. They just had this moment in time where they go, I have made the decision that I was going to get better. And they did. And that just says so much of what belief truly has to do to creating the outcome in the life that we want for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So negotiating your life you want. What does that mean? Because I know you're also writing.
Yeah, negotiate your best life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can we negotiate our best life? And what does that mean?
Just making sure that you stay on the offensive instead of going, hey, the narcissist is doing that. The narcissist is doing this. The narcissist is doing that. How are they getting away with this? How are they getting away with that? How are they getting away with this? It is so easy to fall into that trap all the time. And yeah, they're always going to be doing things, but I always say, like, football teams don't win on a great defense, right? They have to have a really great offense, so stay on your side of the fence, stay on looking at how you're going to be powerful, because there's always going to be toxic people in the world. They will always be toxic. They will. They're always, if each one of those, let me just say that, put it this way. Right now, 15% of the population is either narcissistic or has some kind of disorder that is like an antisocial personality that has some kind of overlay that means that they have something in them that causes them to have no empathy or can't feel anything about other people. All right. So, and if each one of those people emotionally abuses just 3 people in their lifetimes, then that means that translates to 158 million people in the United States, or 3.4 billion people on the planet. That's nearly half of us. And that's just if they emotionally abuse 3 people. It's probably way more than that. So the likelihood is it's pretty much all of us who are going to bump up
encounter
against
this at some point in our life.
Yeah. Right? So we have to learn how to deal with this, as regular, reasonable people. I call it the RRPs of the world, right? If we're going to have to, we can't change them. We just said they're not going to change. So thinking that we're going to change those people is not the answer. The answer is here. So negotiating our best lives, that's the answer. And so becoming the most powerful version of ourselves, that's the answer. So making sure that we know how to feel strong inside and slaying our lives 99% of the time, right? That's the answer. And am I going to feel, joyous and light all the time? No, but am I going to have strategies on how to pivot, on how to, okay, this happened to me. All right, fine. Yes, that's what I'm going to be able to do. So that, that's what I share. That's what I teach people how to do. And yes, I teach people how to negotiate with narcissists too. I teach people how to build strategy, how to build leverage, how to actually win their negotiations. But then beyond that, when you get out of that room, once you learn how to negotiate and beat narcissists, it's almost like you've won the Super Bowl. Okay.
What else can I do?
What else can I do? I can do anything in life now. That's like.
So when negotiating your best life, what would you say is one of the most pivotal things that somebody can do? Is it really stop negotiating with ourselves? Because I know that's something that I speak to quite a bit, on my social media, is we're all negotiating with ourselves every single day. I don't feel like this. I don't want to do this. Every single morning I get in my ice bath and it's 42 degrees. And even now where it's getting colder out, I do it at 6:30 in the morning. But I have a choice in that moment, right? I can negotiate with myself and I can say, you know what? Don't do it. Just let's do what's easy, what's most comfortable. Or I can say, you know what, I'm in charge. Rachel, I'm in charge. And we're going to get in that ice bath. And we're going to sit in there until I tell you you're going to get out. And I know that sounds like something small, but it's actually very impactful for me because I notice when I start negotiating with myself in some areas of my life, I start doing so in other areas of my life. And I think I'm only where I'm at today because I've had to override some of that negotiation and really stepping into no, this is actually the direction we're going to go. We're not going to just, lean into what's most easy and what's most comfortable, which is often what the brain wants to do.
I love the word decide for so many reasons. So the word decide is actually, I call it the deciding factor. So decide, actually, the root of the word decide is side, which is actually to kill, like homicide, suicide.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah. And so when you're deciding, you're actually, the word decide actually has redemptive power. I think of it as like redemption, because you're actually drawing a line in the sand. You're actually making a choice. You're actually telling the universe, like the universe actually starts lining up for you and starts making things happen for you. You're actually saying, universe, things are changing right here, right now. Now this is being cut off. I'm cutting off. You are cutting off any other possibilities. I'm deciding now. I'm killing off any other possibilities. I'm deciding that this is happening for my life. You're telling the universe, I'm deciding that from here on forward, this is how, and that's what happened with me on that mountaintop. I went up to that mountaintop and I decided I was no longer a victim and I was going to be in creation mode. And every time I said, this person's doing this to me and this is happening and why is this happening to me? And, every time you fall prey to those thoughts, you're in victim mode and you're falling into allowing that person to take over control, and you need to pivot into what can I do instead that's going to be in creation mode, and what I think of as God's plan for you, or what the universe plan for you. I mean, because God wants you to be, I don't want to be, too like preachy here, but, God, universe, whatever, wants you to be serving the highest intention for yourself, for your soul. That's why you're here on this planet. You're a unique soul. You're here for a reason. And that's what it is. Serve your highest intention for your soul. Your soul's inside there going, I'm here for a purpose.
Yeah. That's massively powerful. And I've never ever thought about decide from like that perspective as kind of like killing everything that's not serving you and not in the direction that you're moving in. And I love Tony Robbins stuff, but he always talks about like change happens in one moment. It doesn't happen like everything's just like leading up to it, but it's making that decision and saying, I'm done. I'm not being here anymore. I'm going this direction. Just like you did when you were at the top of the mountain and you're like, this person's out of my life. You can't be here with me at the top of this mountain. You're gone. This is where I'm going. And I think that's just such a powerful moment when we step into that. And I know most people can think of moments in their life where they just reached that point and they were like kind of on that wishy-washy place for so long, which just takes so much energy. When we're in that middle ground, we're like, I kind of want to go here, I kind of want to go here, and we're like in that contemplation state. Like that's just an energy like sucker. That's probably not the best word to use, but an energy
so true,
like
right?
killer. But then when you decide, it's like this most like this power that comes over you, and you're and that knowing too that you get with it.
Right. Decide, kill it off. Redemptive power.
Yeah,
right?
I love that. That's so powerful. Well, you put so much awesome information out there on how to slay narcissists, how to negotiate with them, and also how to negotiate to create the life that you want for yourself. So on all ends of the spectrum for people, where can people learn more about you, follow you? I know you got an awesome book here coming out soon as well.
Yeah, it's coming out soon. You can follow me. Definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com and then Rebecca Zung ESQ. And then my Instagram is @RebeccaZung. I'm on TikTok now, @RebeccaZung as well. And I do have a free Crush My Negotiation Prep Worksheet for everybody. It's a free 15-page ebook, which everybody can grab, which is at crushmydeal.com. Yeah, I've had people win their entire negotiations just on that. It's really, really super cool freebie. It's like it's not your normal freebie. It's actually a very super substantive freebie. So definitely go grab that for sure.
Everybody go check out Rebecca Zung and get her free download. We'll put all of that here in the show notes. And Rebecca, it has been an honor having you on today. I could pick your brain for probably another hour, but I want to be respectful for your time. And everybody, do us a favor, take a screenshot of today's episode, share it on your story, tag Rebecca Zung, tag @Rachel Scheer and Scheer Madness, and share this with a friend if you got a ton of value from this episode. And this has been Scheer Madness.